Hey there, this is John Denver. I decided to make this video because I actually started taking the mount apart completely, but halfway through I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a video, I'll put it back together. I'll show you how it comes apart. You know, if you haven't done this before, I never have either, but it's very simple, a little bit. You just got to watch what you do with the parts, but we'll go through how I took it apart while I'm putting it back together. You get a good idea. What ended up happening, I bought this mount about 3 years ago. It's a great mount. A lot of people trash on it and hate the mount, the Celestron AVX Mount. A lot of people trash it, but I love it. It was affordable. It worked great. Little kinks from the factory. Some days got a little testy with me, but for everything, it worked pretty well. Then I started to learn that they're actually designed to default and flaw at about 2 years. 2 to 5 years, so I'm at the 3-year point, and I started noticing tracking going kind of downhill, and then all of a sudden I got nothing. It wouldn't even track on my PhD guider. It just constantly said the declination. It would not stay on. The RA would not stay on. It wouldn't even stay on a star. So I decided to take it apart, and you can join me on this journey. We're going to do this kind of backwards, so again, follow along. I'll go through everything as I'm doing it. We're going to start off with actually one of the motors. I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to actually show you what we got going on here. So this is the entire setup taken apart. You can see the tools that I'm using are a couple of Allen wrenches. I used a couple of Allen wrench sets because, some of them are worn out, my tools, so I just kind of use what fit best. A couple of very long needle nose pliers, one regular needle nose pliers, a Phillips head screwdriver, and I had several small flathead screwdrivers. They're good for getting in there and kind of taking stuff out. I did have some dead bugs in there, and I did actually find some shrapnel in there too, some metal shavings. So where I'm starting out is I actually cleaned out all the parts. They're already been cleaned. I've used the 000 steel wool and brake parts cleaner to clean out all the grease and get all the old grease out. So we're starting with brand new white lithium grease. All right, let's get right into it. Okay, we're going to start off with one of the motors. This is, I believe this is the RA motor. No, this is the DC motor, sorry. The declination motor. So I've already taken this apart once before and cleaned it out with grease, so you don't have to do that part. We're going to take these screws out, which I already did. Remove it. It's very simple. Watch out for parts falling out. There's a washer right here. Make sure, right there, that washer, make sure you don't lose that. Then you're just going to start taking the gears apart. Placing them down. Now I already watch this too. See this little spacer? Don't lose that. It's very simple. That really only goes back together one way. Now I think I already cleaned all these gears off before, so I just wanted to go through it real quick and show you. We're going to use some white lithium grease. Picked it up at Ace Hardware. I want to say it was $5 for this 8 ounce, which is way more than I need. And we're just going to start putting it on there. So back to the way it went. Now these are different lengths. As a primary, you can see these have different lengths right here to here, right there to there. So the smallest one goes on first. Right in there, okay? We're going to grease it up. Real good. More grease, the better. Keep some good paper towel around, by the way. The reason I'm taking this apart, you can't really do anything to rebuild these. I guess, if you can buy the gears, but it's not worth it. You might as well just buy the whole motor. But if you put some good lithium grease in, because the grease that comes from the factory is crap. It's absolute junk. So if you at least put some good lithium grease in, you'll have less of a chance, or you'll have a better gap because it's a little thicker. So the gears will actually sit a little tighter, and you can get another few years out of this thing. Because I tell you, nobody wants to get excited about spending a couple $1,000s on a mount, that's for sure. Okay, now the metal one. I'll clean all this grease up after. This is the messy part. Taking it apart was actually clean. Because like I said, the old grease, actually, most of it got used up and just decomposed, I guess you could say, or whatever. On here. Okay, you can see all the gears are lining up. Don't forget your little spacer, right? The spacer takes up the space to make it the same level as that right there. Straight across. Okay. Get a piece of paper towel. Clean my hands. Clean that off a little bit. And put this in. Just goes right in here. All fits together nicely. Remember that washer right there. Don't forget about that washer. Then I'm actually going to put just a touch of grease way in here too. Way in here. A lot of people get intimidated. This is actually easier than you would think. Okay. Put it back on. I know I saw that other screw just fall out here somewhere. Oh, there it went. Had to make sure it didn't go in here. It was right there. Okay. Don't ever use power tools on this. You'll strip it quickly. Just snug. You'll know it won't go too much farther without stripping. And that's it. Tune up on the motor. So I'm going to do the same thing to this motor over there, and then we'll keep moving. Always be careful when you take it apart. I like to keep all the screws where they belong. So I'll pull this out. See now on this one, the little washer, where'd it go? I think it's stuck up in there. No. This one didn't even have the washer. Very interesting. That's what you get when you buy from China. So I'm just going to clean all these parts off. The last one, I cleaned everything off with brake parts cleaner, but I think, you know, you don't have to. Just get most of the old grease off. You don't want old grease kind of getting with new grease, you know. Look at that. See how dirty that is? I also, after using the steel wool on some of these other parts, by the way, when I was doing them, I'll show you later, I would take them to the compressor, an air chute. After I was done with the steel wool, I would hit them with a compressor. That way, you don't get any little shards of steel wool in there. There's just spacer. Wow, the grease is shot in this thing. There we go. It's in there somewhere. Ah, there it is. Ooh, thought I lost it for a second. Now, oh, there's one washer. That's odd. This was not in the other motor. This little washer right here was not on the other motor. And the other motor had the other washer, which this one doesn't. Be very careful with all these little tiny parts. Okay. And what I ended up finding out while I was doing all this and I took it apart, there was a few things that was actually stopping it from working correctly. The PEC correction right here. This is the PEC correction. What happens is it passes, the infrared light passes through there, and as that little slot right there, I don't know if you can see it, little slot right there, as that slot passes through here and it goes to full rotation, it tells the computer where it is. Well, what ended up happening is there were cracks in the whole thing everywhere. Big crack right here, which was big enough to let light through. So I closed it off and I did a little bit of black Sharpie on it. I used some JB Super Weld and put the rest of it back together, kind of every single spot that was a hairline crack. I put JB Weld on there. Let's see if that works, because I don't know if they even sell that part without having to buy the whole motor. I got one more gear right here. Just do your best to get as much out as you can. Okay, time to put it back together. There's that little washer, don't forget. I'll put it right on there just in case. That way it won't go anywhere. I was hoping to get this done last week before the height of the comet, but you know what, I'll be happy enough if I can get this tomorrow, but done tonight and get all reset up for tomorrow. So, you know, I'll get a full moon in there, but that's okay. It'll wash out a little bit, but it's better than nothing. Hey, 50,000 years, right? Okay, so we're gonna put that on, make sure there's a little bit of grease right there. Put that one on, okay. Put some grease on here. You know, a lot of people make astrophotography out to be a really high scientific activity. Um, I'm not very scientific. I am pretty techy. I do enjoy a lot of the tech stuff about it, both the hardware and the software. It's just the way I've always been. But I'll tell you, you can do this on a budget. You can do this, I mean, I'll tell you the smallest budget here in a second, but you can do this without totally breaking the bank or getting divorced. Don't forget that little washer again on the top, that spacer right there. So my whole setup, for under $5,000, you can basically have everything that you need to do astrophotography for the rest of your life. You can have a planetary scope and a deep space scope, deep sky scope. Pretty much, like I said, anything you need. Oh, here comes my cat. I hope it does not try to jump up here. No, Pepsi. Not today. She loves to work with me on my desks. You can have everything you need, including most of the filters, cameras, everything for under $5,000. And if you just take care of it, then it'll last a long time. You know, obviously everything has a shelf life and a lifetime, but you can't control that. Okay. Put that there. This is for the RA motor, basically the main CPU. I see you looking up here. No, 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 no. She's looking right up here. And there you have it. Both motors rebuilt quickly. Now we can get into the meat of everything. I wanted to at least do that quick to show you how easy it was to just kind of redo those a little bit, and they should run a lot smoother for the rest of their lifetime until they ever hopefully do not burn out. Now, the other part we're going to go through now before we start putting everything back together here is we're working on the worm drive motor. Okay, this was what was happening with that PEC correction that I was telling you about. We have the housing right here for it. This is the worm gear itself, and then there are a couple of small bearings, and of course the gears on both sides. So I've already taken everything apart. This is what it looks like, very similar to this, except on this one, it has this sticking off the end for the RA. This is the DEC motor, the declination motor. The RA motor has this, and it sticks off the end like that, but that's basically what it looks like. Okay. So, again, I cleaned all the grease out of this, make sure. Okay. Going to grease it up a little bit here. Make sure to use white lithium grease. It's thicker than the grease that it came with, and it has a higher viscosity. And just load it up. You know, my thing is I don't think you can use too much. Oops, sorry. I don't think I was coming too close to me. I don't think you can use too much grease. This is where the bearings sit. Or not the bearings sit, but it sits inside of the housing right there. Here are the two bearings. Tell you what, I'm going to... By the way, you see I have a towel here. And the reason... Put that away. The reason that I'm not putting the stuff on a towel while I'm greasing it, obviously, is because I don't want any kind of fur or fuzz getting in there. So my son actually makes these custom trays. Works fantastic for me. Okay, so there's these two bearings here. I'm going to grease up. Even they're sealed bearings, so there's no way I'm going to get grease inside of them, but I still want grease all over them. One goes there. I'm actually going to have to take one of those off again. So it all only goes on pretty much one way. Put some grease on there. Okay, it all slides in through this side like that. Okay, so that bearing seat's in there. You can see that bearing seat's right in there. That bearing seat's in there on this side. Okay. Now, pardon me. What holds these on are these. So you go in here first. And you have to adjust this to whatever tightness you want. The lock nut here. Okay. You want to make sure it's got a little bit of tension, but not too much. Just adjust it with this nut here. Just want to make sure there's no drag. But too tight, and obviously, see, now I feel drag in there. Then it's not gonna work smoothly. I'm gonna back it off just a little bit again. Still feel a little bit of drag. Back it off. That feels nice. Okay. Now I'm gonna tighten it up. Check it again. I want it a little bit looser. What happened was when I tightened it, the inside tightened as well. So if I back it off a little bit more than I want, then when I tighten it, you can see it moves with it. I should be using a different pair of pliers for this part. Okay, there we go. That's perfect. Perfecto. Put a little more grease in here. These darker spots. Okay. Now we have, this is for the PEC motor right here. These two little screws, oh, going the wrong way. It helps to have a magnetic screwdriver, by the way, which this isn't. Used to be. Other tricks of the trade. Now when I took everything apart, I obviously I like to lay all the screws exactly close to where they were, what parts they were for. If at all possible, what I really like to do is put the screws back in where they belong, like this. So I have these where they belong, that way I don't lose them at all. Just thread them in a little bit. And again, just give it a little snug and go back and forth, because when you tighten one, the other one will feel a little looser. Kind of go back and forth. Just give them a little tighten. Okay. All right. There's that part. Now, the PEC motor. Not motor. I don't know. PEC gear, I guess you can call it. Okay. And then I have a long screw for it. Hang on, I'm going to put that in here first. Now, just by looking at this thing, it looks like the tighter you go, the more it's going to expand. So really don't go too tight on it. Otherwise, this will expand and crack. It seems to be a real flaw. I mean, I don't know who else has had issues with it, but I can tell you, to me, it just seems like it's destined for flaw. Okay, so that screw just came through a little bit. I want to back off again so I can slide it in there. Kind of slide the bottom in first a little bit. I should have known better. Oh, there we go. Should have put this on second, actually. Okay, it's barely tight. I don't want to go too tight again, otherwise it will, without a doubt, crack again. Okay, now I really think that's what was causing one of the major problems that I had here. Oh, I feel a little hang up right there. Ah, I see why. That little piece of glue right there. There we go. That was no hang up. Okay, there's one rebuilt. Actually, I gotta put the gear on. I'll put it back on when I actually mount it over there. But one of the, let's see, this one goes right on here. This way. I'll put this one on now, I guess. Might as well. Put some goop on. This is the fast way. Give it just a little bit of pressure. Spin her around. Okay. Now you notice there's two Allen keys on this, one for the flat side and one for the lock. I think I put it on the wrong way. It goes this way. Okay. All right. Lock it down. Now, don't ask what size Allen keys these are. I honestly don't know. I grabbed my whole kit. My kit got knocked down, so everything was on the floor. So I'm going to say I have no idea what size these are. I want to say this is a 7mm maybe. Again, just cinch it down. Don't over tighten anything or it will strip. Okay. Now, there's one. Okay. Put that aside over there. Actually, I'm going to put it over here because it belongs with that motor right there. And let's take this one apart real quick. This one has a little bit of drag in it too. See that? Yep. I was looking at the distance. I wanted to make sure that distance right there was the same. See, now this is stripping in here, so it's too small. That's one thing that I've noticed, is that some of the stuff works and some of it doesn't. It has all different sizes, so I brought I usually get several different Allen keys. This one seemed to work last time, I think. Let's try this. And this is a 8. Yeah, so the 8's working better on this one. The 7 worked better on the other one. Okay. On this side, we have to take the set screws out. Not set screw, but take the main. Ooh. And almost went AWOL. I'm going to push it out this way. Now there's this there's space, or the bearing in there. It sticks for a second, and you just got to push it. I have to take it out with the screwdriver. You always want to be careful when you're working metal. The metal don't score anything. There. Okay, give these a quick cleaning, put it right back together, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the actual body of everything. Now, I would not spray these with brake cleaner, because they're sealed, but the brake cleaner will sneak in there and deteriorate that grease that's inside of there. You don't want to do that. Okay, let's put it back together. Isn't that easy? Grease everything up. You can't put too much grease in here, seriously. If it starts oozing out places, just clean it off. That's all. That's my philosophy with this. Everything has to be so intricate that you're better off having the grease actually acts as a spacer, I guess you can say, because that is a layer of friction there, layer between the surfaces that the grease fills up. If there's any gaps in there, grease all that up real good. And let's put her back in. I was going to wear gloves, but then I decided, nah. Gloves, you can't really get in there and get detailed with these little parts. Just want to make sure you don't have any loose play. Feels good. Give it a cinch. Yeah, I should be using a regular pair of pliers, by the way, for that. Beautiful. Let's grease it. See how this method works. Much better. There you go. Fill that gear up. Sorry, I keep coming back this way because I keep leaning back away from the camera. Let's put this one on. We may have to adjust where this is after we put it back on to line up with the other, with this motor here when it's going to mount up on top. Actually, it's going to mount through here, right through there. So we may have to adjust it a little bit, but I just want to get it on for now. Okay. Fill them gears up. All right, there we go. Perfect. Now let's mount the motors. So, where's that? Where did I put it? There it is. Let's work on some of the housings. Let's do the declination housing first. Maybe you can see it. Maybe I'll put the camera up a little bit more. Okay, so all these surfaces in here, I did with steel, not this, this is threaded, don't do that. I not threaded, I cleaned with the steel wool, flushed it out with water, air, all that stuff. So, real simple how to put this stuff together. You gotta get the washer so you have a small, what, no, that's not the right one. It is, okay. So, we have several of these plastic washers right here. Again, you want to grease everything. This washer sits down in here, so I would like to put the grease down in here. Like I said, you want to grease everything real good. It'll spit out if you put too much in there. Set that washer right down in there. Okay. And again, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on here. And all around here. Okay, because the race sits in here as well. Grease it up real good. Okay. Then this housing here. This is all the spots where the metal touches metal. You want it all greased real good. Okay. Here's the part that goes in here, so I'm going to grease it up as well. Now again, I already cleaned all this up with steel wool before. There were little scores in there. There's still a little tiny nick right there. I've seen people really kind of go hard on them and polish them really, really hard. I feel like every time you take a surface off, you're losing a little bit of material. You end up with a little more play. You have to put more grease in. I just don't feel that there was gouges big enough. And this, like I said, I rebuild cars and engines. This is not high volume. It does have to be precise, but it's not high volume, so you don't have to worry about it spinning and, you know, a part breaking off. So again, I'm going to grease these. You can see the shiny surfaces there, and here. Those are what go in here. This actually rides, this is the other gear on top. This will ride on top of here. So we'll have to grease that up real good too. Oh, I wanted to show you this. See these little Mars right here? I don't know if you can see them. These little tiny divots right there. Well, what that is on here, there's a lock Allen right here, and another poor design, it actually locks into the thread. So every time you do this, you're going to cause a thread to have a little bit of a marring in it. So do this right the first time so you won't have to do it again. Let me just say that. Because every time you do it, you're putting another mar in the threads, and you can see they're all over the place here. Now, I do think that one of the things that I did also learn is that from the factory, all these parts tend to either be too tight or too loose. So if you're someone out there that's thinking of buying an AVX mount, I definitely would watch this video and do this as soon as you get it, because I did find that my mount was way too tight. And I think this started to wear on things quickly. I was the person that, oh, it's from the factory. Wrong surface. Oh, it's from the factory. It's supposed to be that way. No, it's supposed to actually all move freely, not too freely with slack, but freely. So I found out the hard way that it was way too tight. So I'm going to put it together and I'm going to adjust it right. So I say, if you're buying one of these, you might as well learn how to do this. And the second you get it home, take it apart. Because I also did find metal shavings inside of here, which clearly will affect, you know, drag. I'm just putting a good amount of white lithium grease that I got from Ace Hardware on every shiny surface, because the shiny surfaces are what touches other metal. This is also a gasket for here, though, the plastic little gasket. Okay, then we have one of these. We have two, one for the top, one for the bottom. So this goes on next, sits in here. Okay, and put a little bit of grease on that side. Okay, now we're going to seat this down inside of here. There we go. Nice and smooth. Okay. Now, how does this stay on? Like I was saying before, we have this lock nut. Okay. Now, the lock nut has these Allen keys, 3 of them, or this one has 2, the other one has 3, this one has 2, and you can only see them through a portal right on the side over here. You can see that little hole right there. That's where you're going to go through and hit the Allen. So you're going to put this on first. The rule, grease, 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 grease lightning. Okay. Now, when I took this apart, one of the things that I wanted to show you, I'm going to get the light on here. I don't know if you can see any better. It's just going to hit a glare. Okay, so those Allens that I showed you, there's one here and there's one there. When you back them out, you have to back them out enough. Take it off again. You have to back them out enough so that it's inside of this thread. I don't know if you can see that. But not too much to where it hits the outside of this, the housing. So you look from the top and you back it out from the top. And you put the Allen wrench through the side over here. And you can see these 2 little holes right here and here. I don't know if you can see. Right here and right here. That's what you're going to use to tighten them down. And they do have a tool for it. I saw someone that had a tool, but that's what I'm using these for. Very skinny needle nose pliers that fit right in there. And that'll be just fine. Because again, you don't want it over tight and you don't want it too loose either. Ooh, my fingers are slippery. You'll feel some drag on it. You'll know when it seats, but I don't think it's quite seated yet. Oh, wrong ones. Okay, so what I'm doing, this is what the what you're going to actually use to look through for the polar alignment. So I'm going to put my finger in here to stop this from turning, stop the inner side from turning. And you're going to think it's tight, and these threads are horrible, okay? Remember that marring that I told you about? You're going to think it's tight, and then you're going to notice, oh my God, it goes another 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so right now, I can feel the tension with my finger of how tight it is. At the same time, I can feel how easy it is or how hard it is to move. Okay, that's pretty tight. I want it a little bit looser. Okay, that's pretty good. Smooth. Now let's tighten up these Allen keys through here. Now I can see them through the top. There's one here and one there. So I'm just going to rotate it to where I can get through that little hole on the side. Let's see. I think this is the... It says 2. Yeah, whoops. I was wrong about the 8. It's 2. I was reading the wrong side, sorry. No, smaller than that. So it would be the, what is it, 1.5? You want them snug, but again, not over tight. That's too small. Let's see. Does this one work? That's too small. Aha. The other one, old trusty. Nope, that one's too small. That one's 1.5 too. I think that's okay, but I think it's going to be a little bit bigger than the 1.5, which I think it might actually end up being. I mean, I can't imagine how it would possibly be. There's another peephole right there. I can't imagine how it would possibly be standard size, not metrics. You just want it snug. You don't hear a pop. It rides smooth. Whoop. Perfect. Okay. Now we already have that washer on here. We have one of the actual main gears. So again, I cleaned off all these surfaces, every single surface that touches metal, or technically plastic, but this one does ride metal on metal. There were some scores in here that I had found, some pretty deep ones. So I cleaned them off again with that 00 steel wool. I'm going to put some grease in here. Okay. Now the motor sits right up here, right up on top here. That's probably a bad view. Motor sits right up on top here. So the worm drive goes right here. Obviously, worm gear, worm drive, mesh. Make sure it slides on there nicely. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to make sure I fill up these threads right here with grease. The best way, let's see. Now what I'm not going to do, or I'm going to do after, is see the grease on this ledge right here? This ledge is actually where the clutch will tighten up on that ledge. So you don't want a bunch of grease on that ledge. It's the only place you don't want grease. Alright, one more time for good luck. Okay. So again, I'm going to take a clean paper towel and do my best to get the outside of this clean. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just it does. You don't want a bunch of grease on it. Okay, so we have these two screws that I saved from before. Hope you heard that hit the floor. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit more grease on here again. Okay, mount it on. Now I can mount this motor back on here again. Make sure you get as much grease on your fingers as you possibly can. That way you can not grab anything. I wonder if this one will work. Hallelujah. I think it's just a hair too small. For some reason, I think that this is going to be standard size. I know it sounds weird, but all the metrics seem to they kind of want to strip inside the head there. It just seemed to be a tad too small. Make sure they're loose enough. You can move the motor up and down. Let's go through this again. This one like this one, didn't it? Seems good. I spun it around like that so the Allen wrench is at an easy access so that I can hold this up, make sure this is flat, and then get this in here. But it won't. That's too big. What am I doing? All right, nice and tight, all cinched down. Okay, and again, I'll put more grease on before I put the covers back on, make it a little bit easier. Like a little bit easier to deal with. But there you go. There's one axis. And again, this sits on here, so we're just going to leave that right there. Put this aside for now. And let's work on the other one. Okay, same thing. Grease all the surfaces. This one actually gets a bearing. This one gets a couple of bearings actually. Ooh, you know what? There's some grease way down in there I didn't get to. I just saw that. It's crappy, like, I don't know, automotive grease, but not even good automotive grease that they're using. More metal shavings in there, see? Don't want them back. Not at all. Okay. Alright, so we're going to seat this. This actually gets a bearing that goes in here. I've seen people change this into like a wheel type of bearing. I don't know if there's a huge advantage to that. Apparently it makes them run better, but I can't attest to that. And here with the bearings, there's some set screws on the bottom too that hold the, well, these are the screws for the motor, but I think they help hold the bearing in as well. It seems to be a fairly decent bearing. We're going to try to get some lube in there no matter what, and try to force it in that crack right there. Now I could maybe try to take that plastic washer off, but I find when you do that with these type of seal bearings, it really damages it. I'm just going to try to stuff it in the best I can, get it in those, whatever groove I can possibly get it in, because the lithium grease is better. Grease all these surfaces. There we go. Seat that in there. Okay. Okay. we're going to assemble the other part here. This is for the declination. More washers. So we have this washer first that goes all the way down into the bottom, down into there. So let's put a little bit of grease on this sucker. Both sides. Stick that down in there. Grease this up on the inside. A little bit of grease on this side, right there. And this goes up. You know what? I'm gonna put some grease on here too. Just a tad bit. And since this surface right here rides on the inside of there, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on there. Oh, look how marred up that one got. Okay, sits in there nicely. Two washers for here, and then it goes in. You know what? I'm going to put a little bit of grease on them washers, just like everything else. Beautiful. Okay, this one actually has two bearings. Second bearing goes in here. This is a cage bearing. Okay, cage and ball bearing. Kind of weak, but this would kind of stops because this is where the most of the weight is going through on this side. So let's grease this up. And you really want to grease this up. And get it in there real good on every one of them bearings and one of them ball bearings. Both sides. Top cage. And finally the lock nut. Lock nut. This one has, as you can see, three Allen screws. Make sure that the divots are up, because that's how you use to tighten it. That's what you use to tighten it. Careful with this not to strip the threads. Take your time. Make sure it seats nicely before you start spinning it too fast or at all. There, seated. Okay, I'll make the adjustment in a second. Okay, so now we have that on. We need to adjust that. Feel the play in there. Make sure the clutch is off. Tighten that a bit. See, it just came. I thought I had it all the way seated, but I didn't. Look how many more turns it can go still. Okay, now that feels seated. And that's tight, so back it off a little bit. This one should ride smoother than almost anything else. Nut seems a little loose, but I mean, it seems to need to be what's perfect for there, actually. If I actually leave this looser than I would think. I feel a little play in that. There we go. And no back end play. Okay, I'm going to tighten it up here. This one only has one peephole right there. I'm just going to spin it until I see them. There it is right there. believe this was a tiny one. Yeah. Okay. Barely tight. Don't want it too tight. For the next one. Beautiful. Okay. Again, we got to be careful how we adjust this. Remember before, I'm not going to mess with that set screw this time and keep it the way it was from the factory. I have these two that go in here. Thought I had a longer one. Where'd that go? Sometimes the Phillips head will work too. Yep. Not to completely tighten it, but it'll help drive it in. Because it's loose anyway. Okay, now we can use the tool to tighten up the rest of the way. And again, I just cinch it. I don't really crank it down. Anything here and here, just cinch it. You want to make sure when you spin this that it spins freely. Just a little bit of play, so tighten it up some more. Okay. Give it a little tiny turn, like a 16th or an 18th of a turn. That's good. Make sure here again. Good. Don't over tighten it. Good. Spinning good. Okay. Let's put the motor back on. So this gets a little difficult because you have to deal with this at the same time over here. Actually, yeah, now it's on this side. Oop, wrong screw. That doesn't belong there. There it is. That'd be bad, okay? Okay, it's in there enough to put in and back off. Put the wheel on. That's a wagon wheel. I'm gonna decide what angle I like better. Not too big. There you go. I backed that out way too much. Okay, see those teeth there again? Make sure they mesh nicely. Tighten this up. Take this back off. Sits in there nicely, actually. I must say, let's see what happens when we tighten these down. Yeah, meshes nicely still. Good. Take that stupid thing off. Ouch. There. That makes it much easier. There we go. Okay. Nice. Perfect. Easier than the last one. Now, we'll put this on. This plugs into there, obviously. These are pretty self-explanatory. And I believe before we put this on, there's this plate that for some reason everybody complains about having to put on. I'm going to put this on first. I may end up having to take it back off, which is fine. Don't care. Put it on with just two first. Oops. Okay, I'm just going to leave those two in there for now. Yeah. I'll put the third in. Why not? Okay, now let's put this other shield on here. A lot of people say it's hard to get on, but if you angle it correctly, it actually slides right on. You got to kind of angle it in like that. Okay, there you go. Main thing is getting it around this right here. And it's on. Okay, now these are the two screws for those. Okay, all nice and snug. Give it a little test on each one. Like I said, you don't want to over tighten any of these, especially the plastic ones. Ugh. Okay, now I'm going to grease these before I enclose the whole thing. Okay, greased up and ready to go. I can put this cover on, which is this one. Nope, wrong one. This one. Now I actually kept all the screws in all of these. This one comes out because it goes underneath. This goes underneath this tab right there. Again, an ass backwards way of doing it, but that's how they do it. Little tiny screw. Okay, that one is reassembled. Okay, let's work on this one. It connects into here. It only goes one way. Those slots go in right there. Okay. This one's kind of a little janky. I have some of the screws in here too. This one's a little bit more janky than the other ones. the way it fits together is like garbage. Okay. In there. Which ones are the long ones? Okay. Once you get one started, it's easy. It'll hold together. Okay, simple. Got one down here. Okay, two little ones right here. These are the square tip ones, not the pointy tip. That just holds this thing in place. Okay. Look for spare parts. Oh, there's one. I have a feeling. Where'd it go? There it goes. Right there. All right. And there's that. I'm going to get the knuckle put back on here. This was difficult to get out, I will have to admit. There's 3 washers, one plastic one for each side, and then this set one, which you can see has divots in it. And there is another Allen wrench on which side? Right here. There's 3 of them right there, and that's what tightens this up in here. So that goes there, then there, then there. Now this goes through the shaft, through the center, and I found it to be very tight, so I'm going to grease it actually. And it's the same way as before, where it has these kind of weird holes in it to tighten it up on here. So this is the cap, but this is what really tightens it up right here. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease on here and make it easier. Make sure there's no gunk in here. Keys first. I just want to put that in there so it lines up, and then I got to tighten down those Allen keys. Forgot about those. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to tighten 2 of them down and then pull this out so I can do that third, because I'm afraid if I move them, that washer is going to move again. Okay. Okay, I can reach this one. Yeah, I can. There you go. I won't have to pull it all the way out. And if I pull it all the way out, I'd be worried about that washer. I'd be worried this wouldn't slide back in again, but perfectly. Okay. Try this part again. Should go right in this time though. Yeah, there we go. There you go. This could be stiff because it doesn't really matter. You're going to set it where you have it and tighten it down anyway. With the set screw, with the adjustment screws. Put the cover on. Okay, there's that. All right, let's see, do I want it on that side or the other side? On this side. Okay. Okay. Put some more in here. Lithium in here. And that plastic washer, there it goes. Set that in there. Forgot to loosen the clutch. Okay. The other ones go. A couple of them fell. Where did they go? Here's one. And one more. Where'd the other one go? Where did you go to? Ah, there it is. All right. Want to make sure you tighten this one pretty good because this one holds your telescope. Actually, I think I have it on this one. Okay, and that is complete. All done. Ready to put on the mount. They're running nice and smooth. Other than that stupid little snag right there, which again I'm not too worried about. This has a nice swivel on it. This has a nice swivel on it. Locks okay. Alright. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of it at least. You know, this was my first time doing it myself. I am mechanically inclined, but again, it's the first time doing it myself, so I had to back off. You notice I had to do a couple things few times. Just take some patience. Do it yourself when you get the mount, and it'll last a long time, and you'll save a lot of money. So I hope you like this. Please like, subscribe, and clear skies, everybody.